Beautiful Disaster 2012, Book 1, Chapter 3, Saving a Life. Doug watched the water push cars along the street. Keep the windows closed, it's dangerous, came a teacher's voice suddenly. The school shook around them. A few people hit the ground. What the hell was that? Came Scott's voice. Doug turned to him. Water, the school's flooding, said Doug. The first floor was in chaos. The water rushed through the back doors, practically knocking people over. Doug's friend Shayne stood in the stairwell. He held the door open for people to go through. As he turned from the students running, a teacher appeared next to him. Shayne, get upstairs, he said, and Shayne turned from the teacher, and he felt water on his legs. Oh, already? Make sure everyone is off of this floor, said Shayne, and he let go of the door and vanished with the group of students. The teacher watched as the water slowly continued to rise. Go, he screamed, and then he too ran through the doors, and a few students followed out of the dirty water. Doug sat at a desk back on the third floor. It was quiet now. The third floor was extremely crowded out in the halls. Something like this can't happen this fast, Mr. Stokes, said Tobin to the science teacher. Well, it did. I don't like it, he replied. Doug, glad to see you, said Shayne, coming through the classroom door suddenly. Hey, you're all wet. What is going on? asked Doug. Shayne pointed at the floor as he breathed rather heavily. First floor. Flooding. Really cold. More survivors, said Shayne, as he was breathing heavily. Is there still people on the first floor? Said Doug loudly. Yeah. It's possible, said Shayne. Doug stood up and left the classroom. Shayne made his way after Doug, and the two of them made their way through the crowd on the third floor. Soon after they reached the staircase with the big window behind it. Keep up, we can't risk anyone dying, said Doug. Man, I'm gonna die. I think I'm having a heart attack, said Shayne as he ran after Doug down the stairs. They reached the second floor and were now running down the grades 7 and 8 hallway. How high was the water rising? Said Doug as they ran. It was rising fast. Slow down, said Shayne. At that moment Doug came to a stop, and Shayne stopped behind him at the stairs leaving the grade 7 and 8 hallway and down to the first floor. Oh no, said Shayne, and Doug watched. Water was rushing through the halls, and it was just slowly rising past the 5th step on the stairs. You ready? Said Doug, and Shayne turned to him. Who said I was coming with you? He replied. Doug took one or two steps down the stairs, staring at the brownish-colored water. You don't have to come if you don't want to, said Doug, and Shayne disagreed. I'm coming with you, he said firmly. The two of them ran down the staircase and into the cold and dirty water. This isn't normal, said Shayne. The water didn't quite reach their waists. Doug stared down the hall. Some lockers were still open, and paper and other floatable items floated around in the water. The clock hanging from the roof said 10:47 a.m. This meant that it had to have been 2 hours since Doug had arrived at the school. It didn't really seem that long. We need to be quick. I can feel the water rising, said Shayne. Doug was already making his way down the hall. Agreed. Listen, this floor is just one big circle. You go one way and I'll go the other, said Doug. Shayne nodded and turned to go the other way. When he turned around, he felt something hit him, and he was blasted off his feet and into the water. Doug felt the floor with his hand under the water, and using his strength, he pushed up. He took a breath of air as he regained his balance. By the doors that were ahead of him, there was water in his eyes, and he could barely see. Through the door, a dark hooded figure stood for a second. Then there also appeared to be a reddish and blackish glow from the figure. Doug wiped his eyes, and when he looked up again and took a step forward, the mass was gone. Hello? Called Doug. Doug, is that you? Came a familiar voice. Doug ran through the water as fast as he could. He passed through the door where the dark figure was standing. Doug, came Nick's voice, and he appeared out of the gym office. "What are you doing down here?" said Doug, sounding rather worried. "Look," said Nick, and when Doug entered the room, he saw a female. She looked cold and pale. "Are you all right?" said Doug. She sat up on a desk and was a little wet. "Nick, what happened?" asked Doug, turning to his friend. "I came back down here and I found her leg, Doug. She's wounded," said Nick. Shayne appeared in the doorway. "Yeah, I thought I heard talking," he said, and Nick turned to him. "What is your name?" asked Doug, as he stepped over some chairs and came face to face with the rather afraid female. "Taylor. What the hell is going on?" she said loudly. "Some change in the weather. Let's get you out of here and up to the 3rd floor," said Doug calmly. Shayne pulled the chairs out of the way as Doug picked Taylor up, and they all left the room. Nick saw the cut on Taylor's leg. "Tobin will be able to check that cut for you," said Nick. They began down the hall together, and Doug felt Taylor shiver as he carried her. Just then the school shook, and the water began to rise rather quickly. "The water's coming. Come on, you two," said Nick as he reached the stairs. Shayne looked into the cafe as they walked by it, and in a flash he made out the windows along the far wall cracking. "Hurry," he yelled, and with effort and a little help from Nick, he pulled Doug and Taylor out of the water and onto the dry stairwell. "Thanks. Let's get upstairs now," said Doug, and Taylor leaned her head on his shoulder for warmth. To be continued in Chapter 4.